Steven was never poor, not even close. So he has no dramatic stories about tending bar by day and unloading train cars by night. No tales of working at nuclear plants or sleeping under a bridge. Before Hollywood, Steven was already rich. He owned his own Aikido dojo, and his students included producers and studio executives. In other words, he got into Hollywood thanks to connections, or more accurately, nepotism. His connections weren't at the very top, so Steven still had to work hard. In those early roles, the man was tearing every muscle fiber in his body to prove himself, and it paid off. What do they call it? Grit and grind. Yeah, that, plus a little networking, or a lot. He shot up the Hollywood ladder fast. It took only 4 years and 5 films for Steven to become one of the highest paid actors in the world. This is Frameback, where movies get a second look, whether they want it or not. Steven's first film was Above the Law. His character's name would later unofficially brand an entire Nico franchise. To get the role, Seagal had to demonstrate his martial arts skills to the Warner Brothers execs. They watched, horrified, as Steven threw around 30 of his own students like ragdolls. He was dominating multiple sparring partners at once, and the execs immediately said, "Yep, that's our guy." Steven later admitted the whole impromptu demonstration took several days to rehearse. After Above the Law hit theaters, America experienced a full-scale Aikido boom. Realizing he couldn't be both a movie star and a dojo owner, Steven sold off all his assets. He then spent a long time choosing his second script. He wanted something new, something unheard of. And so came the film where Steven gets killed, spends 7 years in a coma, and wakes up ready to destroy everyone in sight. The movie was a massive success. Steven woke up famous. On a $10 million budget, it made $50 million domestically. Adjusted for inflation, and that's like a $20 million budget, making almost 100 more hits followed. Marked for Death and Out for Justice. Marked for Death was declared the most violent film of Seagal's career, and the MPAA called it the most violent movie of 1990. And that was the cut version. They removed an entire museum of broken arms, legs, and necks. Each new Seagal movie outgrossed the last. The only comparable rise was a certain Belgian guy we all know. But the very ease of Seagal's success eventually turned on him. The downfall began with his biggest hit, Under Siege. After it made $160 million, Steven caught a severe case of "I'm a genius" syndrome, a dangerous condition, especially when paired with a very difficult personality. Fresh off success, the man who loved breaking limbs on screen suddenly decided he should also be a great director. And why not? A talented person should be talented at everything, right? 2 studios agreed to indulge him. Fox offered Steven full creative control, director's chair, producer's chair, and the lead role. The conditions were simple. They provide the script, and the budget stays under $30 million. Warner's offer was even sweeter. Steven could choose any script he wanted. And the cherry on top? Warner desperately wanted him for Under Siege 2. Knowing this, Steven kept raising his demands, and the expected budget ballooned past $40 million. He rejected Fox, agreed to return for Under Siege 2, and chose his directorial debut, On Deadly Ground. Production was a disaster. Constant rewrites, fights with stuntmen, and arguments with friends who became ex-friends overnight. The budget shot up to $50 million, enormous for the mid-90s. Test screenings were brutal. Half the audience fell asleep. Warner demanded he cut 30 minutes. Steven had tried to create a Lord of the Rings-style ending, the kind where the story ends, but characters keep celebrating for another half hour. Except Steven filled 20 minutes with forests, chipmunks, deer, whales, nature literally thanking him for saving it. The film tanked. With a $50 million budget, it made only $39. Steven won a Razzie for Worst Director, and Warner pulled the movie from international release. 2 big-budget films might have saved him, but the sequel, Under Siege 2, disappointed, and Executive Decision suddenly stopped being a Steven Seagal movie at all. If Steven had taken the warning seriously, maybe the sequel would have turned out differently. But the man was convinced that the failure of On Deadly Ground was just bad luck. This was also the movie where Steven first wore a belly compression belt, promising producers he'd get back in shape. Spoiler, he didn't. And to top it off, he forced his way into the final edit, ignoring the director entirely. The final blow came in 1995. A domestic violence scandal erupted, followed by multiple accusations of harassment. Kurt Russell, who was also signed on for executive decision, refused to work with him. Had Steven not just delivered two huge failures, the studio might have protected him. Who knows, maybe Russell would have been the one sucked out of the plane. But fate had other plans, and Steven's character was killed off immediately. John Leguizamo's role was expanded instead. That avalanche crushed Steven's career. He never appeared in another major studio blockbuster. His films tanked one after another. 5 years after On Deadly Ground, Steven moved to low-budget TV and direct-to-video, escaping only once for his role in Robert Rodriguez's Machete. Just like Van Damme, Steven was destroyed by his own inflated ego. As his career declined, he stopped taking care of himself, and by the late 90s, he barely fit in the frame. People love to mock him and say he's not a real actor, but somehow watching him on screen was more enjoyable than half the so-called great talents working today. Charisma matters, and Steven had it. That was Frameback. See you on the next Rewind.